Hey everybody, welcome to Multiplying Polynomials. I'm your host, Mr. Hayes. Um, as always, glad you're here. Just wanted to run through a couple things. I'm not going to do all of these problems, but just a couple of reminders when you're talking about multiplying a polynomial. So I wanted to review the fact that, again, so much of math is stuff you already know how to do. We're just doing it in a new way. So remember when we were multiplying out a problem like this one here, always helps if you have a pen ready. Okay, you're going to multiply out the coefficients. So negative 5, or 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. And then I'm going to multiply out the exponents. And so when you do that, remember you're adding, or when you multiply like bases, you're going to add their exponents. When you're distributing, like down here, everybody gets the copy of that 3. In this case, they get a 2, they get a 4, and they get a 4. And so I get 8x. And the thing to remember here is that after this, you still have to clean it up. You're going to add like terms. You can only add terms with the same variable and the same exponent, okay? And that's not going to play too much of a role for these two examples, but it's still going to be important. Here, the 3 is never a problem. Everybody gets 12x. Well, some people might get 7, but it should be 12x plus 6. Now remember, here we're subtracting 5 times whatever that is. So the safest way to do it is distribute the negative 5 to everything here. And I come up with negative 10. Everybody gets that part, but you also have to make sure it's now a positive 15x, because negative 5 times positive negative 3 is going to become positive. And again, combine your like terms into 27x, and then you're going to combine these terms here to a minus 4. Okay. The concept is usually not the hardest part. It's the making the silly mistakes with the signs that's the hardest part, that people do consistently, and then they're always like, this is hard. It's not hard. You need to pay attention to detail. Okay? Everything that we're talking about in this, you've done before. So like here, multiplying a monomial by a binomial, I want to take this whole 3x, and it's going to be multiplied by the x. It's going to be multiplied by the 2. And I'm going to write this out a little bit more work than we necessarily would show initially, or we would have before. But the reason why I'm doing this is to make sure that we can see what's going on. That 3x is going everywhere. So that 3x times x is now 3x squared. 3x times 2 is now 6x. Okay, same thing. All now we're doing is we're adding a little bit of the stuff that we learned in the exponents unit into what we already did before early in the year. Okay. Down here, same exact idea. As always, please remember, pause if you want to try a problem. Pause first, do the problem, and then hit play, and we can go ahead and you can see what the answer is. So again, this 4x squared is going all the way across. Now again, the step that I'm about to show you, eventually I would guess you will probably not need to write down. I'm doing this so it is abundantly clear what's going on in the problem. Because if I just wrote the answer, some of you might be like, where's this is magic. And we can't have that. You need to know what's going on. But now notice this problem right here is exactly almost identical to what we did back here a page. It's almost like this. It's the same idea. So break out your tools. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. And then same thing over here. If I do this one, I now get 16 because 4 times 4 is 16, and I get x to the 3rd. Now again, remember, from our adding and subtracting, you cannot combine those. They're not like terms. They're related, they're cousins, but they don't live in the same house. So this is now your final answer. And that's it. Okay? So that's what happens when you take a monomial to a binomial. You're going to multiply it out. And again, eventually, to be clear, eventually this is what you're going to end up doing. But again, it's not a bad thing if you don't need to. If you don't. Now, binomial by binomial. What I'm about to show you, I am showing you because it's going to be, it's called double distribution. Are there other ways to do this? Yes. And the reason why I'm showing you this way is because of what we're going to end up doing in a week when we start factoring, which is basically undoing everything that we're doing. Without this step, it is very hard to actually, it's easy to get caught up and not to understand what factoring looks like. So this is why I'm going to do this. Now here, what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole 6 minus x. Because remember, whatever's in front of the parenthesis, we can distribute through the parenthesis. So I'm going to multiply this to the x. I'm going to multiply this to the 8. So when I do that, that's going to look like x minus 6 times x plus x minus 6 times 8. I suppose. You don't necessarily have to have parentheses there, but you can. And then after that, we're going to do, that's the first distribution. Now here's the second one. This is why it's double distribution. Now we're going to come back and distribute this. And when you do that, now notice, and again, this step right here I'm going to write down as optional. If you need it, please do it, because organizing is half the problem so much with math. So that's going to become x squared. Oops, sorry, moving too fast. That's the next step. So then I would get x times x minus 6 times x. So I'm distributing that across. And then over here, I'm going to get x times 8 minus 6 times 8. And then, so now it's like, hey, I can do all of that. X times x, that's easy. X squared. Negative 6x times x, that's negative 6x. And then 8 times x is going to be 8x. Negative 6 times 8 is negative 48. Now, before you're done, the one thing you should always do is see if everybody's going right home to the same house. That whole idea of going back to that whole, cousin, whatever. Whoa, sorry about that. Something I printed got printed. The joys. Okay, hi, we're back. Sorry about that. I'm not going to cut that out. Not that I couldn't, but I need to get this up on YouTube. But anyway, so as I was saying, you do want to go through here and say, hey, is there anything with like terms? These two are like terms. And so we're going to go ahead and clean those up and make sure that those go together. And so your final answer for this is going to be that. Now, what we're going to, now again, the whole reason why I'm doing this is because what we're going to eventually do is we're going to work this backwards next week. And when we work this backwards next week, we're going to see this step up here. Let me pick out my magic pen. So let's just say, this step right here is usually hard for people to see. And the reason why is because I've never shown what I just showed you. Okay. And again, that red step in the middle is kind of optional. So let's try another one. Actually, we're going to do one more after this. There's not a lot of examples here, because it's pretty straightforward. But so again here, if we're going to go through and do double distribution, we're going to take this x minus 2, and we're going to send it across here, and we're going to send it across here. Now, does it matter which order you do it in? Not really. If you wanted to put this x up in the front, you could. I'm not doing it that way because, again, sometimes it's harder for people to see if I do that. This step, mandatory. Now, when I go through and I do this multiplication here, I am perfectly fine, and in fact, I hope at some point you'll get to the point where you can just say, okay, that's going to be x squared minus 2x, and then this next section is going to become minus 2x, and then negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Okay? Now, if you need to, please go ahead and put this optional step in here. If you're not sure where all that came from, just do this. Okay, that's going to be x times x minus 2 times x plus, and then I've got x times negative 2 minus 2 times negative 2. Nothing wrong with writing that out. Much rather have you do that, take a little extra time, and then get it right, than use my name in vain and say how stupid Mr. Hayes is. Can't learn any math. You can learn math. You're fine. Ta-da! And again, combining like terms. Okay, one more. And we are going to spend more days on this. So this is just kind of like the intro, get your feet wet type of thing. Oops, too far. Let's do this. So I'll do that. Let's say if I had x minus, no, we'll make it a little bit more fun. Let's go 2x minus 5 times x squared minus 3x plus 4. So in this case now, with a trinomial, what would you do? Take a second, hit pause, write out how this distribution would work, and then hit play. Hey, welcome back. So what we're going to do here, this is going to go to the x squared, this is going to go to the negative 3x, and this is going to go to the 4. A little bit more to write down. Any harder? Not really. Just got one more thing to do. Pretend it's an extra level on your game. See there, I'm doing it backwards. If I'm consistent, which I should be, I would write it like this. Plus, then I'm going to have 2x minus 5 times negative 3x plus 2x minus 5 times 4. And then you're going to do the distribution out this way. So if you want to write it out, you get 2x times x squared minus 5 times x squared. If you'd rather just kind of do the math in your head, again, this is going to be your optional step. If you want to just jump to the end, you can say, well, 2x times x squared, it's going to be 2x to the third minus 5x squared. If I do the same thing here, this multiplies through. And again, if you want to write out the work, you got that. If you don't, negative 3x times 2x is plus 6x squared. It's going to be negative 6x squared. Stop. I caught it. You're fine. The secret word for today, by the way, is doctor. Plus 15x. And then again here, again, if you want to write out the work, please do. 2x times 4 minus 5 times 4. Not 2x times 4 is 8x. 2x times, or negative 5 minus 4 is going to be negative 20. And then again, go through and say, hey, who's writing home together? 2x to the third, fine. X squared, negative 5x squared, negative 6x squared, you guys need to get in the same car. 15x and 8x, you guys need to get in the same car. Negative 20, you're good. So 2x to the third minus 11x squared plus 23x minus 20. Okay. Ta-da! Now let's make it a real box. There we go. Okay. So again, that's the basics of multiplying. We're going to spend another day or two to make sure you guys are really good on this. And then from there, we'll do a quick quiz, and then we'll talk about how to undo all of this. Okay? So anyway, as always, feel free to pass this along to your friends. If I was a real YouTube star, I would say make sure you subscribe and hit like if you like what you see. But I won't say that. So anyway, hope you find it useful. I'll see you in class.